Well, the main reason I like flow forms is that I can get a flow form 16, a flow form 30, and a pilot 50 in this. So I've got winds covered for quite a wide range. The workhorse is, for me anyway, is the flow form 16. 16 is for 16 square feet. And I'll say on the way by that I always fly it with a fuzzy tail. I don't know who named it a fuzzy tail, but you can see why. And it's the simplest tail in the world to bake. Might as well talk about that while we're on our way by. It's a piece of twill tape or grosgrain ribbon or something like that, sewn down the middle of a piece of, about 8 inches wide ripstop nylon or other fabric that will serve the purpose. And then after you've sewn it down the middle, you just simply cut serrations on either side. You can do it with a hot knife if you want to be elegant about it. You can do them layered, as Craig has done very successfully, and make them much fluffier. But it's the easiest thing in the world to build, and it's a good introduction to working with nylon because there's almost nothing you can do wrong. I use about a 20-foot, 7-meter tail, perhaps, for the flow form 16. And the 16 is, the difference between this and parafoil is mostly shown right here. 3 shroud lines instead of 12. Would you hold that, please? That's big enough to lift a 2-pound rig in 10 miles an hour and up, and it'll go all the way up into the 20s if you're brave enough. It's a good pulling kite when you get up into the higher wind ranges. Another popular size is the flow form 30, which is approximately twice the size of that one. And this is a surprising size because it gets, it looks about the same size in the air, but you get it as it comes down, you know, the way you terrify people by pulling a kite down and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I use twice the length of tail with this. For location of the tail, I usually run it on about that much line. I don't ever measure that. I just kind of go, well, that's about right. You tie it to the 2 back corners, stretch it out and find the middle, tie a loop knot there. Don't just attach something that'll slide back and forth because then you won't get the self-centering ability of it. And you can see it's a much bigger kite. Okay, that's the flow form 30. Price-wise, this one is a little under $200. The other one is a little under $100, plus the tail. And what I've discovered, a couple of people before coming to this said they were interested in a flow form 60, which is twice that size. That's a real arm wrestle. But then I started thinking about these wonderful little parafoils that seem to be flying above all of Peter Lynn's monster animal kites and things like that. If you look at it, you'll see that there's another little innocuous kite up above it. That helps get it launched, and it keeps it in the air in all kinds of wind conditions. And he calls it the pilot kite for that reason. Okay, you see I'm still unrolling this. This little parafoil that Peter Lynn uses, this is the small one, and it's 50 square feet. But the thing that appealed to me about this, I'm not a big fan of muscular kites because I'm too old to work that hard. But what I am interested in is something that's going to work, that's going to be a soft kite, so I can carry it with me everywhere, but will lift a pretty good payload in very light air. Now this will fly in the 2.5 meters per second that you were talking about, around 5 to 6 miles an hour. And it will lift my 2-pound rig. But up above about 10 miles an hour, you better tie it to something. Yeah. Yes, this does not, none of them is really easy to fill initially, as you'll discover on the beach today. I'm sure that we'll have the right kind of winds to try all of them. Whether this one will probably be the first one to stay in the air because it has better lift for its weight than either of the flow forms. The main advantage to this over a flow form 60 is that it's about $100 cheaper. I sell this for $250. I would have to sell a 60 for $400. So that's a major difference. The other thing that's interesting is that you don't have to use a tail in any wind. I have tried to hang on to this thing. It was tethered to the ground, but I tested it. I've tried to hang on to it in winds that were upwards of 25 miles an hour. You know, what's that, force 5, 6, something like that. I mean, Kevin's got a picture of me hanging on to this thing. That's all I could do to keep on hanging on to it. So I'm a big advocate of soft kites, but this is about as complicated a soft kite as I want. This has, 9 shroud lines, as opposed to the Flowform's 3. Simple is always better. But this has the capability of flying in lighter air than the lighter ones, than the smaller kites. Yeah?
I have 2 questions, actually. So you've actually found a practical advantage to using this where you couldn't fly your 30 and get a rig lifted up in the air?
It'll fly. Well, when you get down into light air, the difference in size makes a very small difference, but it may be a critical one. It may make the difference between flying and not flying.
That's what I was wondering.
But it's still marginal. I mean, there isn't any kite that's going to be really comfortable below about 10 miles an hour.
The one time you're flying a storm kite?
I'm sorry?
The one time you're flying a storm kite, that 3-cell thing?
I don't know what it would be.
Oh, it's red, black, and white. There's 3 cells, you have 3 cells.
I don't remember. I don't remember. I've tried lots and lots and lots of kites, and I also should say that I have built and successfully and very happily flown the Dobro. It's just that I really get spoiled about this stuff. I mean, I can be all packed up and in the bag in about 2 minutes, and I can unpack in about the same amount of time. You just pull it out, shake it up, pull it up, shake it out, and it's up. If you've also figured out a way to mount your rig so that you don't have to put it together every time, then you can really have a camera in the air awfully fast. I know that Hector is very concerned about that in his police work because sometimes he has to get out of the middle of the street. The string angle of the Pilot 50 is better than the Flowform, but not as good as the Dobro. Dobro has a nice high string angle, and boy, if the wind is really light and I have the time to do it and have it with me, I'll go with the Dobro any old day. But if I'm trying to do it soft, then this would be the kite I would use in really light air. I definitely would not use this kite in really strong air because you're spending all your time worrying about the kite or worrying about your arm muscles.
What about collapsing in light air?
It looks like it's going to. Does an awful lot of wallowing, but it seems to want to fill itself up again. Well, you'll see today, I think. Yes, Don?
What test line do you use for the 16 and 30?
I use 220 for both of them because, again, I don't like to fly in a lot of wind. If I'm flying in a lot of wind, then I'll go 220-pound test. I still take the precaution of using about a 400-pound snap swivel because I've straightened out a 220-pound snap swivel with a 30 and not very much wind. Fortunately, it's the kind that locks so that it didn't go anywhere, but it ended up looking like a, a comma.
That same line with the Pilot 50?
Pardon me?
That same line with the Pilot 50?
I have flown the Pilot 50 with this, as long as you're sure it's not going to increase in speed. Otherwise, I would use 500-pound test, about, what's that, about 3 millimeter, 4 millimeter line?
Yeah, it's 3 millimeter, no more.
What's the advantage between the 200 and the 500?
Insurance.
Is it best to use the 500?
Well, now, if the line is heavier than you need, it's going to do this. And you won't have as high a string angle. You want to get your kite at a reason. I mean, there's a nice compromise in there. I personally don't like a kite that flies up here because it doesn't suspend the camera in a stable way. I always use a picave suspension. If you've got a kite that flies at an angle of about 45 to 60 degrees, then you can get a nice triangulation on the picave and it will hold it much more stable than if you got it like this, then the picave is like so. I think it would be the same with a pendulum, wouldn't you? Would you say the same problem would exist with a pendulum? Pendulum people? So I think there are advantages to having a kite that doesn't fly at a super high angle.
Well, another advantage of the heavier line is it's easier to handle it.
It's much easier to handle. It's not going to cut into your hand as fast. It'll still cut into your hand, but I would definitely not use anything more abrasive than polyester line, by the way. I don't even think Spectra is a good idea because Spectra is so slippery you can't really get a hold of it when you're pulling it down. Kevlar is wonderful, but Kevlar is like playing with piano wire or a razor blade. No? You like Kevlar.
I always fly with I can't understand the people that fly
Without gloves.
Fly with Kevlar.
Yes.
No, even without.
There are some who are macho enough as to try to fly a big pulling kite without gloves, and I just think, why put yourself in the position of a mishap which would cause you all kinds of grief? Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
I have one more question.
Yeah. Scott.
I noticed, look like you're using only one tail, you're using a V system to go to one tail from the two
Yes.
attachment points. Can you comment on doing that rather than putting two tails, independent tails on?
I'm not sure that there'd be a lot of difference. And in fact, if I were trying to launch in a situation where a long tail would have more problems getting snagged on something, I might split it. I mean, my tail is in two pieces. I might split it and do it as you suggest, one tail from each corner. I think you'll get the same drag effect or a similar drag effect.
Yeah.
Yes, that works very nicely. That gives you very good drag to just simply make a U-shaped tail.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend two separate tails because they can tangle on each other and become asymmetrical.
Yeah.
What about the spin sock? You don't use it?
No, I've tried spin socks, I've tried regular wind socks, I've tried tube socks, and I come back to the fuzzy tail every time. Mostly because it's so much more, you don't have to take the time to wind it up.
Spin sock
You
is
just,
short. I mean,
yeah,
it's
that's
on the
true.
ground, less possibility
That's
of
true.
hooking onto something.
I don't have any problem with that. There aren't any rules. Do it the way you want. Carl, you've been trying hard.
Yeah, on the bridles on the full form, the slippage that happens occasionally on the knot, they become uneven. What is the bridle form? Is it a round bridle, same length of line?
No.
Or are they a flat bridle?
No, they are different lengths from center to sides.
Okay.
The company says that it has never had a problem with the knot slippage on the ring. I say my customers tell me otherwise, and I have suggested that they do what I have contrived as a sort of a double lark's head, There are two ways you can tie it, but I've got it on my website if you want to download it. It's
The knot or the length?
the knot.
Okay.
The length, no, I can't tell you anything about the length. You'll just have to
Is it a
measure them.
flat kite with longer ends?
Pardon me?
Is it a flat kite?
Yes, it's a flat kite with,
Okay, so
yes.
the other ones are longer?
That's correct.
Oh, flat kite. Okay.
Anybody else? Yours.